Hi, welcome back to Spiritual Crypto. Where to start? This could be really boring because I don't really know what I'm going to say, but I guess it'll be the same as every other recording of these podcasts that I've done. Or it could maybe be like a therapy session where you go in and you don't really know what you're going to say because there isn't something super obvious presenting itself in your life necessarily. And then sometimes I found that those turn out to be some of the most impactful sessions because things that aren't necessarily in your awareness can present themselves. And I've kind of treated these podcasts, or my intention at least, have been to treat them as sort of like therapy sessions for anyone who's like willing to tolerate that. Whoa, I feel like a lot has happened. I felt like making this now because I'm recording this the night of Tuesday, March 7th. So tomorrow is International Women's Day, and this whole fucking month is like Women's History Month or something. And I'm perpetually online. I'm on social media for sure every day. I mean, yeah, virtually every day unless I like take a day off because I'm meditating or something. And mostly that's Reddit, and I'm on Twitter almost every day. I haven't been on Facebook in many years. And I'm on TikTok like pretty regularly, but I'll also take breaks from TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I watch YouTube videos every day. Yeah, I would say actually YouTube is the platform I use the most anymore. Anyway, I haven't seen a single, that's not true. I've seen one email, so that isn't a social media post. One email about like acknowledging the fact that it's even Women's History Month at all. I'm sure there'll be like other emails tomorrow and whatever messages on social media, but like I remember saying something about this last year too, like what the fuck? Women are what, more than 50% of the population? And there's a single month out of 12 dedicated to their history, and there's no focus on that. And somebody like me who's on the fucking internet all the time, who is vocal about my interest and dedication to like trying to heal the wounding to the feminine in myself and in this messed up world, somebody like me should be seeing those. I should be shown that type of content. And if even I haven't seen it, it means it really doesn't exist, I think. So that's so like bone wearying that it made me think about how some of y'all might know that I left the US just for like 4 months. I'm back now. But there's a specific type of denigration of the feminine, misofem, the word I made up, to describe the denigration of that energy in humans of all genders, and misogyny too, in the United States. And I don't really see anyone talking about it in sort of the ways that I'm experiencing it and perceiving it. I mean, obviously there's conversation about the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned, and although I haven't even seen much in recent months about like action being taken to try and address that. We have a seed was redeemed to ask for help on behalf of local abortion organizations working on the ground. And I thought that we would see fundraising for that naively. I thought that maybe that would compare to what we saw when we were raising money for the Ukraine defense against Russia when the war first broke out. That was the single largest gift, I think I've already said on this podcast, like the single largest gift that Seeds has ever received came in for that, for the initiative to raise funds for local abortion organizations working on the ground. I think we've raised like $1,000 in 9 months or something like that. And it just really goes to show like, yeah, people will get up and try and fight a war. And that isn't to say, of course, like I don't in any way mean to be insensitive to anyone who's experienced tragedy as a result of that aggression. But the point is that it's so fucking masculine. War is masculine. It's the pinnacle of unhealthy masculine energy and a lack of healthy feminine energy. And that got money to Seeds and trying to help local abortion funds provide basic health care that virtually every developed country in the world has provided, unquestioningly for many decades, for 60 plus years, in a lot of places, that nobody fucking cares, basically. So I don't know. I just felt like I needed to get out of this place. So I left for a while. I went to Italy for 3 months. I can't remember how much of this I might have already shared. And then I felt like going to England for a while, which I did. And I spent the bulk of the trip in England. I was briefly in Amsterdam because I had to like figure out how to get my dog into England without like having to like board him or whatever they call it, like put him in cargo with like the luggage, because he would have freaked out and stuff. And the UK won't let you bring animals in the cabin, which is stupid. But anyway, I found a way to do it, which was via like flying from Italy to Amsterdam and then taking like an overnight ship into England. So we did that, which was kind of fun actually, but it was a lot of travel. And then I just stayed there for a while, and I think I was drawn to some sort of energy, which I maybe shared before. I have this thing about worrying about if I'm repeating myself, because I know that narcissistic people often do that. So that's why I continually want to be conscientious about making sure I'm not doing it myself, I guess. Although I don't think when I do it, it's about narcissism, probably almost ever. But yeah, just to share in case anyone's ever noticed that pattern in me. Yeah, but I think I was following this energy that I see like expressed through semi-famous actor Max Minghella, my future husband, because he's Italian and he's English. Genuinely though, when I first went to Italy, I thought I was looking at houses, and I did look at houses thinking that, like I could buy a house for like 50,000 euro or something, and the dollar and the euro were at parity at that time. And I just need a home. I'm trying to find a home perpetually, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen like while I'm a human on earth, but I'm trying. And once I got there, I looked around, and I knew it wasn't right. And then I got this message, this clear sense that I should go to England, which I did. And I'd been to both countries previously. I'd been to England more often. But yeah, it seemed like, okay, like I'm actually following energy, and that's probably what's going to present itself as what ultimately feels like a home. It's going to probably come through a person or people rather than like a physical place. Although, as I'll share, I'm in Massachusetts now, and the closer I get to Martha's Vineyard, the better things feel. It's like the light has, I was trying to describe this to like my therapist, coach, energy worker that I talk to regularly. I feel like it's like the light here has more facets. There are more like fractals of light that are able to come through here or something. Has anyone else ever noticed this? I mean, obviously people like Martha's Vineyard and want to spend time there. So rich people have like bought it all up and stuff. And I'm in the Cape right now. I'm not even on Martha's Vineyard. I'm in like the part of the Cape where like I can see a Trump sign like hanging on somebody's fence if I look out the windows of this house I'm briefly renting. And a car parked like 2 houses down has like a "Don't Tread on Trump" bumper sticker on it with like the snake icon. So yeah, I'm in that version of Cape Cod right now. But the light is still here. I can still feel the light, and it just feels better. It really does feel a lot better, which is interesting. There's something about that I think is actually important, and I think is helping me out through this transitional time we're moving through energetically. But anyway, yeah, I was in the UK. I think I was also learning lessons about monarchy and that specific strain of the suppression of feminine energy and all it's done, and how that should have died 100 years ago, but they managed to keep it going through fucking awful methods. And I've always, I guess I've been like an Anglophile. I was always drawn to British culture, and didn't expect to have something of a negative experience there, although because I was like, yeah, I thought that all like thinking people naturally believe that monarchy should end and was overdue. in that, that it should end. And that might not be true. But yeah, I just had kind of a weird experience there, and I really wanted to leave toward the end. But then I was like, where the fuck do I go? Where else can I go on Earth? Like, I could go to like Northern Europe maybe, where, you know, the least misogynistic cultures on Earth seem to be. But it was still cold, and I'd spent a fair amount of time in Finland, and had even hired Finnish people in the past, specifically Finnish software engineers, to try and get around this thing I'd experienced of like another form of misogyny, being that software engineers, who are, regardless of gender, although they're overwhelmingly male, they all seem to have internalized misogyny to a greater extent than I've seen in other places, particularly if they're in like tech. Like, I mean, like people that work for fucking American tech companies out of San Francisco and whatever. Oh, I'm exhausted just saying all this stuff. But basically, yeah, I was just like, what do I do? Where do I go? I know that nowhere on Earth feels good. Some places kind of feel better than others. I do really like Martha's Vineyard. And I just remembered, actually, just before I started recording this, that in 2019, when I went to France to go to clown school, before getting kicked out of clown school, I did a Dolores Cannon, like QHHT past life regression, but like her specific method for that, with like a licensed practitioner or whatever, who was French. And as she was taking me through the regression, which somewhat interestingly, though it was recorded both by me and by her, the recording is lost. And I mean, I record sessions with like the therapist, coach, energy worker I talk to regularly, and like often, not even often, virtually always listen to them again and like meditate or something while I'm listening to them. And I found that is often helpful. Like I'll glean more learning from them when I do that. So it's just kind of interesting that recording from this specific session got lost, even though I often record similar types of sessions and keep them for posterity, and I've done that forever. Yeah, but so I don't remember that much about it, the session, which is also kind of interesting. One thing the practitioner said was that when she started it, she tried to like walk me backward into past lives, which I've seen other practitioners do, like people that post YouTube videos of their sessions and stuff. And she said that I went forward in time. And she said she'd only had one other person ever do that out of, I don't know, 400 people she'd worked with or something. And I did it unprompted, and I didn't remember doing it consciously. I didn't consciously remember. And anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up, though, was even though Martha's Vineyard wasn't terribly on my radar at that time as a place, and I'd only been there once. I mean, I've only been there twice now, but for little periods of time. In the forward regression, I was seeing myself in Martha's Vineyard in like a house that was mine, with like a partner, a male partner who looks a lot like Max Minghella. Although at that time, I didn't discover him or really know who he was. I still have never met him in person, but it wasn't until I came back to the States after getting kicked out of clown school, which would have been too long after this, that I saw his film Teen Spirit, and then like watched an interview he did about it, where he talked about, somebody asked him like, why did you write a story about like a young teenage Polish girl who's a singer? And it just clicked, and I was like, oh, he's the one in these past life regressions that I've had, where I was a young Polish woman who was a singer who lost her father. Like, and when I saw that in an interview he gave, I just immediately started sobbing. Like, and I was just convinced that he's this person I've known in other lives. None of that had happened yet, but in this past life regression where I went forward in time, I was in Martha's Vineyard, and this partner was there, and we had like a biological male child who was young, and then we had like an older teenage child that we were caring for. It didn't feel like we'd adopted her, but maybe we were fostering her or something like that. And I can even see the visual of it now if I close my eyes. And so that was there. And I do feel that, like I'd even I don't know, I'd always been drawn to like the I think it's called cedar shake siding that's so prevalent in like Cape Cod and on Martha's Vineyard. And my like desktop picture, wallpaper on my laptop had been houses in Martha's Vineyard for a while and stuff. One was Judy Bloom's. She sold it though, I think. Anyway, so I don't know. What I'm saying is that some more subconscious part of me seemed to have been drawn to that place way before. And that there's that Judy Blume book, Summer Sisters, that I've read a bunch of times that's set on Martha's Vineyard, which always like piqued my interest too. But it just feels better here. So like I came here after I left England. I decided to go to Toronto because I was thinking like, well, of all the places I've traveled in recent years, the nicest people I've been around were in like that area in Canada. So I went there, and then I was staying in an Airbnb there with my dog, and was also just thinking about how fucking ridiculous it is that I'm paying, like I'm getting, storage is such a scam. Like the fact that like in the same way that rent is, there should be no subscription services for like fucking housing things. I mean, if it's an essential, I mean, I could go on a long rant about this, and I think I need to think through some of the specifics of my irritation in more depth. But like storage units just seem like such a fucking scam, and I'm paying so much money to have a shitty storage unit basically. So I was thinking like, well, what if I got like a shed? What if I found, since I've been looking at tiny houses and so forth to try and put on this land I bought in Massachusetts last year, but you need permits for that, and with supply chain issues due to COVID, they could take a really long time to get there and be more expensive than you'd pay otherwise and whatever. So I was thinking like, okay, what if I could find just like a shed that I don't need permitting for, so I could just move my shit into it at least, so that I'm not paying these fucking scam artists in California to hold on to my possessions anymore. And then I found this site, which I don't think I like. I think this is probably why I went to Toronto, or like why I was part of the reason I was compelled to go to Toronto, because I don't know that this site would have shown up in my SEO as high as it did if I hadn't physically been there, because it was like an Ontario company. So yeah, I found this company that like makes these kits for tiny houses that are intentionally of a size that like means that your municipality isn't going to require a building permit. So I looked at them, and they were like 10,000 US dollars or 10 and a half ish, depending on price fluctuations and whatever, taxes. And I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I could just do that. I could get this and drive it down to Massachusetts in like a U-Haul and build it myself. And even though that's kind of what I'm the worst at of everything on earth. I mean, I really, really need to work through this thing of just like hating it here. And that's specifically just hating there's a lot of grief under it too, like just what's been done to feminine energy in this place, because I feel like I remember in Earth and other places that really had a healthy, my voice is softening as I'm like thinking about this, just had a healthy, beautiful balance of like yin and yang energies. And this place so doesn't, and so few people even seem to have any awareness of the loss that's there, that it makes me feel extremely alone, and like there's not much headway I can make here. There's not much that can be done, but I understand the energies are changing, and I think we're going to see enormous changes in my lifetime. And I think this was all part of my mission and whatever. So like it's easy to I guess that's actually a hard one, intellectual understanding, but I feel that I have it now. But that intellectual understanding is very different than the emotional, experiential like belief that would allow me to not fucking hate it here so much of the time. Oh man, but it's clearing, I think. So yeah, I got the tiny house kit. I ordered it. They had like a sale for some reason at some time over the new year, I guess. I don't remember. Or at the end of January. It wasn't like Chinese New Year or something. I think they just randomly chose that time. So I got like $1,000 off and was like anxious about renting this 20-foot U-Haul and driving it down myself. And that's the other thing. I have to do everything myself. Like, I don't have a support system really at all. And I didn't. I mean, I didn't come from a family that I felt gave me much kindness and support ever, even when it was really deeply needed and I asked for it. But beyond that, I think I'm moving through this phase I think I've talked about where it's kind of interesting. It's like any relationship that wasn't working well, or that and I'm not to say that I was like the easiest person to be around always like not at all. When I think back about, the way I was when I was younger, sometimes it's horrifying to remember some of the things I did and how I just behaved in certain ways, and like didn't realize what effect that would have on other people. So that's what maturing is, I guess. But all that said, what I'm finding is that relationships like that weren't really functional, but that I would have kept perpetuating because I didn't understand anything about what a healthy relationship was. It's like the universe now or something is just like making them go away. But that process feels like it's been happening for a year and a half-ish, maybe, or something like that. And it does feel like I'm kind of coming through the birth canal now, especially this past weekend. Like, I don't know how y'all felt, like around March, what was that? Like 3rd, 4th, is that right? 5th, yeah, 3rd, 4th, 5th or something. Man, this past weekend, I was like, it was so hard. It was among the hardest times I can remember, in terms of like feeling like I don't want to be here. Like, I don't want to be on Earth. And it's never quite suicidal when that comes up for me, but it's like it's more like a thing, like I wish somebody would pick me up on a spaceship and take me to some place that's better kind of thing. But yeah, when you're like kind of really all alone and you're trying to find a home, sometimes that can feel overwhelming and hard, at least for me. So now I'm warm, so I'm gonna take off this like sweatshirt thing. Yeah, but I was proud of myself because even though I was anxious about this U-Haul, I'd never driven anything that large before, or anywhere near that large with that type of visibility. It was no big deal to like get it, and I helped them load the house up, which took like 3 hours, which I was not told. I was not made aware it was going to take that long. And I got it down to Massachusetts to my land and looked at the land and even made like a TikTok about it. But then weather hit there, which obviously was never not going to be something to be mindful of, because I was trying to like bring lumber down to, like Massachusetts in February. So I realized that it wasn't worth the risk to leave the kit on the land, even if I tried to secure it with like a tarp and, set it up on like scrap wood / wood that was pressure treated and rated for ground contact, these are all like terms I've very recently learned. It just wasn't worth the risk of it getting potentially destroyed if there was going to be more snow, which it certainly looked like there was going to be. So I put that in storage too. So like 3 storage units are hitting me now. One of them because of the first shitty storage unit, like totally fucking me over when I moved and like not taking all my stuff. But that's a whole other thing. So anyway, whatever. That gives me a little more time. But yeah, it's just like the burden. Like, this would be really fun to do. Like, building a tiny house kit like this would be super fun to do with a friend. I think I would love that. It would be so fun. It'd just be interesting to learn, and like I could totally feel the energy of what that would be like, but I don't have that. I don't have anyone that I could call up and be like, "Hey, would you want to do this for like 4 days or something?" and like invite them to come stay, and it's just gonna be me, or like fucking I'll have to find somebody and pay them money to help a little. So that, because that intersects with all of my wounding about home and never feeling like I found a home anywhere, it's like there's like my wounding about having to do everything quote unquote myself, and then the wounding about never having a home, like they're coming to a head. And those are two of probably the, I don't know, most painful, unhealed things still in me, at least in terms of what I'm conscious of right now. Maybe I'll heal more stuff and my awareness will increase, and then I'll see other stuff that's also like deep wounding. So that's just like, I understand why it's coming up now, and like getting on the other side of it will be such a huge shift, I think, because like, I mean, I was already proud of myself for just driving the fucking thing down here, and when I unloaded it at the storage facility where I left it, I was going to do that by myself, and this really nice person who worked there, this guy Rich, just came out and helped me. It took like 3 hours, and like, it was so nice. He didn't have to do that at all. And it made me reflect more so on like how my ability to receive help, and also just like how it feels unsafe because I can feel the energy of another person. And I guess I'm more vulnerable in those situations. So it's like even harder to be around stuff in their energy that feels like it could hurt me, I guess. And I'm not like, haven't done enough Vipassana yet to be equanimous about that. That'll be so amazing when I get to that point where like other people's energy no longer bothers me. And I knew one guy who had gotten there. There are people living now who have reached that point. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So then I was like thinking and reflecting, and got this sense of like, well, should I, the weather's going to be shitty for a little while longer. The land's in Western Massachusetts where there's more snow. Maybe I should just actually go out toward like Martha's Vineyard area for a couple weeks and be in the light here and see if that helped me. And then the other thing is that I just started an intensive coding course yesterday on Monday. That's related to, I guess, what I was talking about earlier with like misogyny everywhere, and like happy International Women's Day and stuff. Like, again, I have been far, far from perfect, especially in years past, and hard to work with. I've been hard to work with myself in various ways, and Seeds had so little money for such a long time. But all that said, I think without exception, every software engineer I've worked with was a fucking misogynist and blasted that out at me in different ways that made working really hard. And, at the end of the day, the current Seeds product is 95% built by me because I had to do that, and it's not good. I mean, it's good enough, but like, we promised this dashboard. We didn't promise it. That was the thing. We gave ourselves like a backup plan, which we've been using, but I had hoped that this dashboard tool would be done by like June or July of last year. And I hired a software engineer to complete that at that time, and paid him as much as I'm paying for this course, which is a 3-month-long course, which is like so frustrating. And the output of hiring that particular engineer was that he broke a tool that I struggled to figure out how to make myself. It was this tool that allowed people to choose how much they wanted to contribute to people in need through Seeds. That was the only fucking thing he accomplished of like any merit, or like, that's not the right word, but like, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And he was so oblivious. And like, certainly I'm the common denominator in all of these situations because I chose to work with all of these people. And it comes from such a scarcity mindset because I'm so convinced, even though intellectually I understand that there are wonderful people who have that skill set, who are out there, who would be really excited about the Seeds mission and would see like what I can offer and everything. In my energy and in my body, I don't believe that I can interact with that and connect with it and stuff. So then I get into the scarcity place where it was like, oh fuck, we need to get this done in like 3 months, and this person's available and they seem okay. I can at least do this trial and see how we work together. And then we do the trial, and then he's a fucking like entitled whatever. And it's like a nightmare. And then earlier this year, like at the beginning of January, I guess, 2023, another software engineer reached out because we have these job postings. I've been trying to hire for these positions forever. And at different points, I've been like more actively looking for that than at others. But I mean, these job postings, they're up still today. So this person reached out. It was a femme person who also revealed themselves to be misogynistic pretty quickly. And I saw it, and it was like, it's such an insidious thing, man. Like, it's just so interesting and clever, really. The different ways, if you just start paying attention, you can see how it shows up in so many fucking things. Even in like so-called like progressive, like leftist groups, and like in people who think of themselves as forward thinking, and in me and in you. Like it's I'm convinced it's literally in every human being, unless you've done enough meditation to excise it. And I am not there yet myself. Yeah, so it was just like, okay, at least this time I saw it in advance. And I think I handled the situation well, which I wouldn't have necessarily thought that I did in the past for sure at all. Sometimes not at all. It's, like it got progressively better over the years. And I didn't hire the person before. Like, I didn't kind of see that there were issues, but still choose to hire the person like I did so many other times because of scarcity thinking. So it was like, okay, this must be the universe telling me that, like, I have to do this myself. Like, it's clearly not working. Like, trying to hire teammates to complete these tasks, which would really help seeds scale and grow. And 2023 is such an important year. Like, I'm so convinced it's a building year, which I think I've said on here before. I think I've got a year. And probably Marchish to June-ish 2024, when the next Bitcoin halving happens, the market will kick off again, and Seeds really needs to be positioned to serve as many people as possible and to invite in as many new givers as possible at that time. And the product ecosystem is not ready for that now. And it needs to be. So yeah, that's a little more than a year away as I record this. So I just thought, like, okay, I think that's what the universe is trying to tell me to do. And I've had like other intimations of this idea that like, this sounds trippy and I worry it sounds like egocentric or something, but whatever. It's like a thing that's come in a bunch of times while meditating and like in different types of like spiritual type sessions and stuff I've done. But this idea that later, like in my 50s, which isn't so far off anymore, which is kind of trippy. I'm almost 39. That like... I'm almost as embarrassed to say this as I am to say that I'm going to marry Max Minghella, but whatever. This thing that came in was this idea that like in my 50s, mid 50s or later, I would have the sense of how to create a new building blocks for a new type of computing language, which isn't at root grounded in binary code, ones and zeros. Even quantum computers are still working within that spectrum. But rather than that, the building blocks, instead of being concrete ones and zeros or moving in a spectrum between 1 and 0, the building blocks would behave more like matter and would be able to be a particle and a wave. So something that's definitely connected to Vipassana, I'm certain, because Vipassana is about observing sensations in yourself, and there's something about how the existence, as I understand, of like the possibility of the particle and the wave collapses when observed. But something, oh man, I just like met a physicist that I'd like to talk about this with. I've become convinced, or curious at least, about the idea that it isn't just the fact that there's an observer that collapses those two things together, but rather it's because the observer is not like a Buddha or an arahant, like somebody who's all the way out. Because until that moment, when we're observing things, we're not observing them clearly, like at the highest level of whatever clarity is. We're still bringing in our sankara and our trauma, and like everybody still has it. People have it to varying degrees. Some forms of it are societally acceptable and some aren't. But yeah, I think that's what it is, man. So like, I think I'm sure that's related to whatever this thing is that I'm going to discover. So it's also really important that I'm taking the time to meditate and then getting kicked out of the Vipassana center because of that teacher has been a hurdle in that regard. But there's a reason that happened that I'm supposed to get around to. And I will, and I can meditate anywhere, and I'm meditating right now. I'm able to do it almost all the time anymore. All that said, yeah, I think that have been pushed into getting a better understanding of how things work now through taking this more intensive course so that I have that knowledge, because I think it could lend itself to something else later. Excuse me, in the short term, it needs to set things up so that this dashboard tool and sort of other basic improvements to the Seeds ecosystem can take place so that it's really ready to scale next year and beyond. And then longer term, man, it's going to be like flying spaceships with consciousness and stuff like that, I think. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Here I am, though. Body stuff is so weird. Like, my health is all jacked up still, but it's like I'm trying to make it better. That's related to not finding a home too, I think, and just struggling on Earth. And I think it's just part of ascension stuff too. I quit drinking coffee like 5 days ago or something. And I've done that at Vipassana courses before, and I knew it was always hard for like the first 3 or 4 days, and then I'd start to feel way better. Now I'm still really tired, but I know it's just like this whatever hypothyroidism stuff related to like being on the keto diet for too long and like hormonal imbalances and stuff. And I'm really trying everything I know to do to heal it. I've been lifting heavy and trying to put on some muscle, and I put on like 7 pounds of muscle per like my last DEXA scan, which was in late January actually. So hopefully it's a little better now. But that also means my scale weight's like way up. It's like I'm almost at the heaviest I've ever been, and more of it's muscle, but like my body just feels so different and still not good. And I can tell not drinking the coffee is really helping my gut, because I know that part of the issue was like the keto messed up. It was too restrictive, especially when I cut calories more. And even though I got down to like the lowest scale weight I'd been at since I was 15 or 16, it just fucked stuff up. And then I started getting SIBO, and I know that the SIBO, the small intestinal bowel, but that's not what it is. Yeah, it is small intestinal bowel, right? Overgrowth, whatever. It means bacteria are growing where they're not supposed to be growing. It had to do with like gastric emptying not happening consistently, because that's like a non-essential thing that your body stops doing as efficiently if it's trying to save energy because you're on a restrictive diet. So I know that happened. But the other thing is that I only learned this like recently, but the vagus nerve like compels that gastric emptying. And I can feel it right now. There's a past life death injury in the back of my neck. And I've been aware of it now for many years. I think this past life showed itself, I don't know, like in sessions many years ago, 6 years ago. Is that right? No, it'd have to be, yeah, maybe close to 6 years ago, actually. And I feel it. I mean, I think I was stabbed in the back of the neck. I might have talked about this past life a little bit on here before, but again, I'm kind of embarrassed sharing this, but here it goes. It was like a Latin American life. I think I was female. I had like dark brown skin and dark hair. And I was a singer again. And this feels almost like it was like early 20th century, possibly. When I've done these sessions, the practitioner I've worked with has said that she got the sense that like this was even a person that maybe we could find like newspaper clippings or something about, who was like kind of locally famous. And I had a mother who was beautiful and narcissistic and had me very young, and she was really damaged, and something really horrible happened when I was a child. It was like, I think she like let a bunch of men like run a train on me or something like that. Like it's like some sort of really deeply traumatic sexual abuse that was related to a betrayal by my mother. And I just shut down, and I was like a heroin addict in that life and died young. But I was also a singer. I don't think I've talked in too much detail about this life on here, because come to think of it, some of this stuff hasn't really presented itself to me even until quite recently. And I was really feminine. And that's the thing. Like in this life, I feel so masculine, especially now that this body is heavier. Like I just feel so masculine. And like I have so much Aries in my astrological chart. And I think that's related. Like it was about, there's something about coming in to understand how to heal that masculine side because it has to stop fucking like killing the feminine. It has to learn how to be a good container for the feminine to be able to thrive and like transcend to the next level. So I think my line of growth was about coming in as a woman this time, but like in a very sort of masculine feeling experience. Although I'm like way more heterosexual than I wish I was, which is sort of more fashionable thing to say anymore. But like I do feel that way. Yeah, like I think that's it. So I think I'm learning about the masculine side of this and figuring out this body in this container so that the healthy feminine can then come in, because it can't come in through me or on this planet in a real way until the masculine stops fucking like trouncing it all the time and like raping it and killing it and everything. And it's so much bigger and stronger and more expansive that it's like, and subtler, and it's just like, it's a higher level thing. But the masculine has to be a container for that. So anyway, in this past life, it was like she was so feminine and so powerfully feminine, but because she had, I'm like closing my eyes, like remembering it or going into the impressions I have of it, whatever it is. But I mean, I believe it, and it's shown itself a lot in sessions and stuff. It was like so after she was like terribly abused and stuff as a child and she shut down, there was one like male childhood friend who was like the person that she trusted the most, even though he didn't deserve her trust. And I'm going into the third person because I can't drop in and fully identify first person with this yet because of stuff that's unhealed, I guess. Still, in some past lives, when I look at them, I can really feel it first person. And when I'm talking about them, I'll just like naturally go more first person. Anyway, yeah, this kid that she grew up with that she thought she could trust, but it was just that she couldn't trust anybody, and she could just trust him slightly more. And I'm in a much like a lesser version of that in this lifetime. I think I need to learn that lesson too, the lesson of discernment and also trusting when it's like safe and it's the right thing to do. And I don't think I'm going to have any problem with that whenever it shows itself to me. Like when I find people that really understand, and I think that's hard to find too, you know? Like there are lots of lovely people, but also finding somebody who really gets what I'm talking about. That's the harder thing. And that's what's been so elusive. And some of that's also like the gifted adult thing, I think, as well. Anyway, so yeah, she, in this past life, trusted this kid, even though he didn't deserve it, but she didn't have any better options and didn't know any better because she was so horribly abused. And then she started doing like hard drugs young, and then she was just like totally checked out. But she could sing. She could really sing. And when she sang, she channeled the feminine down. But because she wasn't dropped into her body, because she like couldn't be without having to feel all of the awful trauma that she experienced as a child, because she wasn't dropped into her body, the feminine energy couldn't come through and come out her body and project out as she was singing in the way that it could otherwise. So it was like, I always see like a weird visual of it. It's like it's coming down. It's almost like a spongy thing, but it's not like absorbent. It's just like, it just can move. Not like clay, but like, I don't know. And it's like oval shaped. It's weird. I don't know. But it like comes down, and then she would put it out to people, and it was feminine energy. But because she couldn't like bring it through and ground it on earth with her earth energies and her earth experience as like a feminine being and stuff, it couldn't like, I've never gotten this before, but here it goes. Like it couldn't like fully integrate with the earth energies in the way that would have made it at its most helpful and powerful and effective and like nourishing for the people who heard it. So the people that heard her still loved her, And that sustained her in a way that nothing else did in that life. But it just could have been like alchemized in this completely different way had she been able to ground it through her body, if she'd actually, been able to do the healing work of that lifetime, which would have been really hard. And then she was murdered. What I've gotten when looking at this before, she came in a dream once too, actually. I've had very few past life snippets that I was confident I'd also seen in a dream, although I'm sure they show themselves a lot and I just don't remember them when I wake up. But this one did. This might be the only past life I've had where I had that, where I like clearly remember it. In the dream, it was like tropical is not the right word, but like very green. I mean, like South America, like green. It was at nighttime. The sense of being on a stage and her mother being on a stage. I think her mother was a singer too, but she couldn't do what I could do as a singer, like anywhere close to it. And I think it was the night I was killed. And this sense of the childhood friend, the boy who is now a grown man, we were adults, standing. I can see him standing kind of facing toward me, but he's to the right. But I'm not her. I'm not in her body as I see this. It's like I'm just seeing it as it's about to happen. And it's like he's wearing a whitish shirt and he's going to go kill her. He's like thinking about this plan to kill her. And it was something about, it was like there's some sort of like totalitarian regime in the country or something. And I was using my platform as like a local famous person or like a nationally famous person to speak out against this regime. And I was doing it in kind of an addled state, because like I was high all the time. I was using heroin a lot. And the regime didn't like that, but the childhood friend and my mother somehow used that as a way to make some sort of deal to arrange for me to be killed so that they would get money from the regime or something like that. Like they used me for like one last time for this thing and kind of used that as an excuse. So yeah, wow, talking about this much is like bringing out more stuff because I've never talked about it this much in this session before, and maybe this much information about it wasn't available to me before, I guess, too. Yeah, but I was killed. They stabbed me in the back of the neck, and I think he did it himself. I mean, just talking about it now, it seems like it would make less sense for him to do it himself, but I think he did, and I think he like came in because I would have been high or whatever, and like, he would have just come in, and I would have been like, he was around, like I wouldn't have been alarmed about him entering. And the stab was through the back of my neck where the vagus nerve is, I guess, according to my recent internet research. And I think it even went into the voice box. And I died. And, it wasn't a coincidence that he was drawn to do it in that area. And that's like a weird place to stab someone, kind of. I mean, except that they can't. Whoa, I just like looked out the front window, which is in front of me here. Like I'm staring out the front window of this house. And there's a big bush there that it's kind of tropical looking. I don't know. It doesn't look like something like, it's not like a fir tree or something. And it was like moving, and I had this like real moment of fear. And it is kind of reminds me of that dream I had that night about like the type of plants that were in the dream and the darkness in the dream. Anyway, that just happened now, whatever. So I said it. So yeah, it was about taking away my voice and stuff. And I don't think I've met that person in this lifetime, the guy who did it, or my mother in that life. I don't know that I met anyone from that life in this lifetime. And what's why was I so by myself in that life too? Like this life has been a lot easier in so many ways, but like I'm by myself in this life as well. What is that thread? Because I can't see, like, would I have met the partner on the other side of it or something if I'd actually been able to heal all that trauma? Yeah, maybe. I never have thought about that before either. Yeah, I might have found him on the other side of that trauma. Maybe. Yeah, I think he was around, like, as a human being around that time. Anyway, there's snot and stuff in my throat now, like mucus. It's so interesting how like physical things can like happen when you look at past life stuff, even though I'm just like talking right now. I'm not like, working with an energy practitioner or something who's someone other than me. Yeah, so why am I bringing all that up? I don't know, I guess because that life's at the forefront of, I think, what's coming up now. And this post is kind of starting to get long. Yeah, it seems like I'm releasing more of her stuff, and I think that's part of why the days over the weekend were so hard. Like, they were so hard. It was hard. I'm fortunate I was like inside a house and could rest and stuff. I slept so many hours the one day. And ate junk food, like binge ate, like I haven't done in a while, which is like this old, I'm sure I've talked about it, this old like unhealthy pattern when like really difficult stuff comes up emotional eating. Yeah, so I hope she clears, and I hope I can like release her trauma and stuff. And I think healing my own body now, if I can just get this figured out, I think I'm close to it. And some of it is figuring it out with my brain, because like I got acupuncture when I was still in Canada, which did help with digestion stuff. And he told me I was imbalanced, like surprise, surprise, like yin and yang aren't balanced in me. But I kept saying stuff about the vagus nerve, and he didn't do anything to the vagus nerve, and I should have insisted, but it was also just like this thing of like, I mentioned it 3 times when I was talking to the fucking guy and like the doctor, and he kept nodding and like acknowledging, like as though he understood that there was a relation between the vagus nerve and digestion. And so it was just this thing of like, why do I still have to insist after I've already said something 3 times, clearly in expressing what I understood was something that I needed? Like, that's part of this lesson. Like, if that's happening, go to someone else. Stop fucking trying to talk to the people who like are willfully not listening because they don't fucking want to do it. I mean, in that case, I thought like, he's a doctor. I thought he understood something else that I didn't understand. But yeah, I don't know. If I would have insisted, I bet he would have come back in and had me sit there for another 20 minutes with some fucking needles in my neck. But that didn't happen. So meditation helps the most. Vipassana helps the most. But yeah, I might do a little bit more of that specifically for the vagus nerve. And yeah, I'm just hoping like she can clear, the Latin singer can clear. And then I can fucking land in this body enough, in this, what is a biologically female body, and work out this masculine energy so that it's finally healthy. And then like, just like a fucking like ocean of feminine energy can come into me. And then I'll not only be balanced, but like really be able to just exude this feminine energy at a higher level. And then I think I'll really be able to step into my purpose in this lifetime. And not that this whole journey wasn't part of the purpose too, but I think that's what's next. And I might be closer than I realize I am. And I want to give myself credit. Anytime I see a woman like really properly express her value, so many times when I see that, it just like moves me to tears. So I want to do that too. Like, I want to give myself real credit for all that I've done with seeds. Like, now I'm learning how to build even more of it myself in a better way. I've never seen any other founder of a tech startup who's gone through anything. Nobody got arrested and spent the night in a Kenyan jail working on their fucking startup that I know of. Like, I've done so much with so little money. Fucking trying to build this house by myself now. Like, I want to give myself proper credit where it's due, even if I don't have anyone else around me who sees it or is around to see it even. Yeah, but I can be a support to myself and show love to myself. And I understand that as I do that more, then the world will do that too. It'll come more through other people too. So I think that is closer, hopefully, than sometimes it might seem.